Sarah Boone's murder case was so talked about that the news of her story spread beyond Florida to the whole U.S. and even other parts of the world. Sarah Boone, by many, was a household name. But trying to choose jury members was like finding a needle in a haystack. They had many requirements. They didn't want anybody who had been following the case, no one that has seen video evidence already, and who would go into the courtroom with an open mind, not already thinking that she's guilty. It took almost a week, but they made their jury selection and the trial began. After many discussions with people who attended the trial, we get to detail how the jury was, how they reacted to certain things, and also parts of it that we couldn't see from Sarah and her reaction. At the start of the trial, both the defense and the prosecutors gave their opening statement. The jury listened intently to both, but during the prosecutor's opening, there were several jury members that looked shocked at some of the details. What's interesting to note is that the jury almost the entire trial would not look at Sarah Boone. Several people, though, are convinced that Sarah Boone was trying to get them to meet her gaze, and they just would never do it. But one thing that I learned that's so interesting after talking to Shawn, who is one of the people that I've talked to who went and saw the trial in person, he said that after they pulled out the suitcase, the jury as a whole was just flabbergasted, with some mouths gaping open in horror. And he honestly felt that after pulling that suitcase out, they could have just ended the trial right there. But if you watched my recap of that day and what I talked about, I said up until that point, my defining moment was them pulling out the suitcase and seeing it in front of another adult human's body. It was so much smaller than I thought it would be, and it had things that were in it, so even less room. And so it's interesting to know that my reaction and feelings on it was exactly spot on with how the jury reacted. The prosecutors intentionally kept the suitcase in court every single day. Whether it was in the box or not, they wanted it there and visible so the jury could keep being reminded of it and the horror that took place. When Sarah was on the stand, and that's when they soon started showing pictures of her injuries and bruises, some of the jury members were taking notes at that time. I don't know how helpful that was in deliberations, but they definitely seemed like they wanted to remember and keep certain things to be able to bring back and discuss with the group. The jury as a whole seemed to really get along with each other. I was told that groups of them would be seen laughing during breaks and before and after the trial. I'm kind of kicking myself for not asking for the specific number, but it was assumed all of them. Evidently, after all 8 alternates were released, they all went and sat in the gallery and continued to watch the trial, which if I didn't have any conflicts, I would have done the same thing, wanting to see how it played out. On the last day, that is when parts of George's family came in to watch, and we know that one of his family members started to cry and made a little bit of a scene because Sarah Boone's attorney was furious about it and wanted to have a mistrial. The family member was George's mom. I guess when they started playing the different videos and him talking to Sarah when he was in the suitcase really set her off, and she actually got up and left the courtroom, which broke my heart. But in a loving side note, I guess the entire time that the mom was in the courtroom, George's daughter had her arm around her the majority of the time. I thought that was very loving and very sweet, especially coming from one of the family members that probably needed an arm around her the whole time. I think that also explains why they didn't show up for any of the other days. It's really hard to sit through something like that, and to not have to hear it on repeat is best. So I think it was wise that they only went to the last day. Now knowing that the jury really got along and even went and sat back in the gallery when some of them were dismissed, I would bet that they're going to come for sentencing. If they do and there's any more details, I will definitely be updating this video and making a part 2.